Alrighty, so I am back home, so I'm on a normal setup, so cool. Mic is back to normal, hopefully. But let's talk about this new Red Summer Margaret, because obviously I don't really do Should You Summon videos a whole lot anymore. At least I haven't done one in a couple of months, maybe like the last several banners. I've just been like, people can kind of make up their own minds. Some of these banners are pretty easy to determine whether or not you should skip or summon for them. But this one is pretty controversial, and so I kind of wanted to just weigh in, give my own 2 cents, let you guys sort of, back and forth with me. If you want to leave a comment and let me know your thoughts and opinions on the character, feel free. But yeah, so it's a new Red Summer exclusive Nidhogg unit, which is a really odd combination. Normally, these summer characters are technically seasonal, so they don't come around on a whole lot of banners, which is definitely the scariest part. They've done a really good job with previous characters like Red Thonar, Blue Magelda, Green Jormungandr, to try to recycle them, put them on pretty much. I don't want to say they're really accessible, because obviously when they're unfeatured, it's still a gamble on whether or not you're actually going to be able to pull the character or not. But they do put them in a pretty decent amount of banners. So I hope that they'll do the same with this character. I really hope that they're not just going to be like, hey, she's a summer swimsuit character, we need to lock her behind summer banners or seasonal banners, which unfortunately I can definitely see them doing that. I don't know why they just have, I guess because Nidhogg is the newest and I assume the last big Creature's Nest demonic beast that we're going to be getting, because it kind of completes the cycle. We have one for all races, which we technically already did with Skull and Hati, but yeah, Nidhogg is kind of just like the last one, unless they just want to add another one for whatever reason. I don't know that there's going to be another one coming out. They have already there's been some leaks or rumors that there's going to be a new game mode where you fight different demonic beasts in succession, which is going to be kind of interesting. I know that they've been kind of working on that behind the scenes. Alexis has showed a couple screenshots of the UI and everything for it, but not talking about that. Let's talk about this character, because Nidhogg's pretty hard, but they've done this really weird release schedule where goddesses kind of fit the meta for it. They released a holy relic for Freya, of course, and her holy relic is designed solely for Nidhogg. It only works in Nidhogg, and it just makes her really, really useful because it gives her a stance cancel on her flood card, so it not only hits really hard, but then it also just gets to cancel stances, and it works even through disables because it's part of the holy relic, which is kind of nice. So sometimes, I think on floors 2 and phase 2, if I'm not mistaken, if you stall too long in that phase, he will just do an AoE move that disables all of your teammates. But the stance cancel actually still works through that because it's part of the holy relic, not an actual card effect, which is pretty cool. But they've kind of shoved that character into the goddess race because they made it to where her passive or her holy relic actually makes her a honorary goddess unit, which is very odd. So she can fit into the goddess team, but you can also use her in the Ragnarok team as well. If I go over to my game and we go over to Nidhogg, you can see that I don't use the goddess team, mainly because I don't have Mael at 5/6 or 6/6, which is where his debuffs become gray, which means they actually can be applied to the boss itself, because he's immune to basically every single red debuff in the game. So if you are like me and you don't have him quite that high, mine's 4/6, so hopefully next time a banner comes around I'll be able to pull at least one copy, and then I could use him on the boss. But there is a team that you can kind of use, which is the exact same as the Mael team, except you replace Mael with Red Tarmiel, and I was using that to beat floors 1 and 2 up until the point where people started talking about this Ragnarok team that I'm using, and it ended up being insanely good. I can complete Nidhogg by myself because I've been using friends to help me sort of coach through the monster, or the demonic beast, over the past couple of weeks, but I've been able to complete it pretty much this whole month, and then even maybe a week or two before this. Pretty much easy peasy. I had to reset a couple of times, a couple of weeks ago, just because of bad RNG draw. But overall, the Ragnarok team does fantastic, I would say. Last week I had to reset one time on floor 3, and it wasn't even a big reset. It was me Alt F4ing because I didn't do quite enough damage, so I just used a different set of cards. So it was legit just super smooth. The Ragnarok team does fantastic. So Do you need Margaret? I guess it really just depends on the characters that you have. If you are like me and you don't have Mael completely maxed out, he makes things a lot easier because once you get his ultimate, he actually cancels stances on his ultimate. He applies these gray debuffs at 5/6 and 6/6 that make it to where the enemy does less damage to you, so you can tank, even easier. And Ludociel, this new Margaret, has a ton of stats that she gives the Goddess team. It's actually kind of insane how many stats you're getting. So you become really tanky. You're doing a ton of extra damage, and it just makes the boss overall pretty easy. I've watched a couple of different people do runs with her, and it seems like she just gives you so many stats that, as long as your stuff is built up, of course, you're going to have a lot easier time with it. Now, obviously, take some of that with a grain of salt. The people that I have watched, mainly, I watched Davo's full playthrough. I've got his pulled up so we can see a little bit of gameplay here if we need to. And I watched Nagato's all the way through. Obviously, Davo has 13 million. He's also got Constellation 6 done, or he's got Constellation 5 done. He's on Constellation 6, which means he's got a huge boost in stats. Nagato also is 13 plus million box CC, and he has Constellation 5 done as well, so he's got a ton of extra stats. I don't have Constellation 5 done yet, but I do have 13 million, so it's kind of to the point where it's hard for me to give you, the exact, being like, hey, I've beat it with this, and I've got low stats like other players do. I'm starting to get to the point where I've worked on my box so much that it's a little bit difficult for me to say, hey, this worked for me, it should work for you, because the way that they just do stats and stuff like this game, it's completely ridiculous. So it's weird that some players have a completely different experience than others just because of the amount of time that I've played and stuff. It's not necessarily the fact that I'm putting a ton of money into the game, which I do pay for stuff, but I don't pay for stuff as much as a lot of other players do. You'd be surprised, but. Just the fact that I've been playing since day one, I'm obviously just going to have my box and stuff like that worked on a whole bunch. But the character seems really good if you're already running Goddess team. I would personally say if you're using the Ragnarok team like I am, there's not really a real urgency to summon for this character. You could technically just wait and try to pull her on a different banner. It's a really weird time right now. There's a lot of leaks and stuff like that coming out now that there's apparently new game files getting added with new collab stuff. Lots of people like to summon on collabs, depending on what collab it is. It might resonate with you as a player, and you really want to have those characters from an anime or something that you really like. So completely understandable. So it's a really tough time, because obviously Demon King has just dropped. If you play demons at all, or you just want to be on top of the meta, you probably summoned for Demon King, which was a ton of diamonds that you spent. Unless you just got really lucky and you just won and done, or whatever the case may be. Obviously everybody's different. But it's hard for me to say, you gotta have this character. Because at the moment, the Ragnarok team does so well that I personally could get away with skipping this character if I wanted to. Now, I personally do summon for every character, so that way I can have them if I need them for content-related stuff, like, video showcases and this or that. But as a regular person, as a free-to-play or whatever, you got to really pick and choose your battles here. So, if you have these characters, which I know some of you don't, I completely understand. Red Magelda, for some reason, they have been very stingy. They have not put her on a whole lot of banners recently. If you don't have her, she's pretty integral to this fight, because she's not only cleansing, but she's gaining HP when she does cleanse, as long as it gets rid of debuffs. It's every single skill she does helps ult rush, because it gains one orb on all of your teammates, which is really, really strong. Some of you didn't summon for Freya when she came out. Completely understandable. She dropped at a really weird time, and nobody knew that she was going to all of a sudden be super essential for Nidhogg, because none of her passive stuff related to that. It was literally just a holy relic that they slapped on her, which was really stupid. So if you already have these characters, which I'm using Scotty, and I was really skeptical about using her in the first place because mine's only 1/6, and if you can't cleanse off debuffs, you're not healing with this card, and floor 3 is the worst for that. Until you get to the phase 3, he basically just doesn't apply debuffs at all. So it can be really iffy up there, and you kind of need her ultimate to heal you in certain scenarios, or it's just really nice as a backup heal sometimes. And with her being 1/6, I was really, really skeptical, and it still has worked out flawlessly, basically, for me. Obviously, if I could get some extra copies, I would welcome those, and it would make things a little bit smoother. I could heal a little bit more. I'm not full healing every time I use it, but, this setup, insanely smooth. And I do understand, you pretty much need to have the Holy Relic with this character. You don't necessarily have to have the Holy Relic with this character, but it does make things a lot smoother. Just having him on the team in general is really nice because on, I think it's floor 3, phase 3, he starts to, whenever he ults, he puts a ton of ignite stacks on, and this character makes you immune to ignite. So obviously that's really, really nice to have. So if you have this set up, you could probably get away with skipping no problems. If you don't have that set up and you're still using the Goddess team, or whatever the case may be, or maybe you have more of the Goddess team sort of built, I can show you. This is the team that Devo's using. This is the team that basically everyone's using right now on JP. I don't know if there's going to end up being a newer team that gets found that's better to use with Goddesses than this one. But like I said, you can swap out Mael for Red Tarmiel. I think you just give him his if you have blue Tarmiel gear, which is triple defense, you could give that to Tarmiel, make sure he has the lowest HP, and he'll basically tank and heal back after each of his hits because he has Tarmiel Link, of course, which is really, really nice. You can use that as sort of like a secondary team, but this one's very strong with the Margaret on the team. Crazy stats, insane buffs, which is really cool. She has basically the exact same heal card as Margaret or Magelda does, and on top of that, it's doing extra stuff. The only problem is she's not giving you ultimate move gauge after every skill like Magelda does, but it's not going to matter too much because you have a ton of stats anyway. You can just sort of work into ultimates naturally, or I mean you can just rush ults with Mael if you have him high enough, and then just give them a ton of debuffs, and that way they can't do as much damage to you. Obviously, both teams kind of work differently, so it's not necessarily the exact same strategy, but the fundamentals of the boss do stay the same. So I don't know, very interesting character. It is a seasonal character. Honestly, the banner's not that great. I don't really think any of these characters in this thing are that good. Like, I mean, maybe Red Brunhild, but people aren't even using her on the Ragnarok team anymore. The catastrophes in this banner are okay if you're planning on running humans. This Halloween Easton is really nice to have in the backline. And if you run catastrophes, which I do not recommend that, this mono is really, really nice for catastrophes as well. And I know a lot of people kind of want to have this, well, I say a lot of people, but some people want to have this Valentine's Day Melascula. She's a little bit exclusive because she is a Valentine's Day character. She's technically on the new free banner as well, but people have trouble pulling unfeatured characters, of course. But yeah, I don't know. The banner's pretty bad. Don't really recommend it on the banner alone. The character does seem good, obviously, so it really just depends on what you have already. If you have the Ragnarok team, like I said, feel free to not summon. You don't necessarily have to. I do like the fact that this is technically a new Margaret, so it's a character that I already have invested into because the old Margaret is obviously using the exact same costumes, so I don't have to worry about buying any new costumes or anything like that for her. I'm already maxed out, which is great if you've invested into the old Margaret, which a lot of you probably have, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I would say that she's not super essential, but I think the Red Magelda may end up being the big kicker. If you don't have Red Magelda, it's really hard to substitute her for a lot of other characters on the Ragnarok team. So it's a tough one. It really is. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I've been able to enlighten you on some information about the character. But yeah, I will definitely be summoning for her whenever she comes out on Global, which should be tomorrow night as of the time of me going, or putting this video up. And the patch notes for her will actually drop later tonight, so that will also be out. So if you want to, we can go over the patch notes together, and then we can actually summon for her tomorrow night, and we can showcase her live on stream. So we will see how that goes. Feel free to subscribe. That way you can kind of stay up to date with everything on my end, and I'll try to give you the best information I can get. But that is it from me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was helpful. If not, let me know. Let me know what I could do differently. If you have any opinions on the character, of course, let me know down below. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on the characters. If you play JP or anything like that, maybe you've used the character already, let me know how it went. But either way, a lot of different factors that go into it, of course, but this one is pretty controversial. So seasonal units, that's the biggest gamble here. But collab maybe? I don't know. See you guys later. Have a good one.